Hey, it's Tom from Daybed Records. You're listening to the Daybed Dribble. This episode we've got Frankie P from Where's the Pope, who were an integral band in the late 80s and 90s in the Adelaide and Southern Adelaide music scene, and 40 years on are still playing today. We wanted to get Frank in to learn about the scene back then, what it was like playing the very first Big Day Out in Adelaide, and what we can expect from Where's the Pope at the upcoming Nice Day to Go to the Club festival on Feb 22nd. Hope you enjoy. Super pumped to learn a bit more about you and the band, and I guess the era that we weren't a part of.
Yeah.
The 90s.
Yeah.
So
good to be here.
Yeah.
Cheers. Thanks for coming down. Where'd you travel from? Where are you living at the moment?
Just over the other side of town, up Lower Mitcham Way.
Yeah.
Just up there.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
It sounds better. Hey,
It's
sometimes
not punk.
you go, oh yeah. It's not, no,
He lives
it's
in
not-
Mitcham.
I'm probably the only one there who's heard of Where's the Pope. But
Yeah. Maybe kick things off with a bit from your early days, early childhood, and how maybe you got into music, and maybe some artists that you were listening to growing up, or a bit of anything from your early days.
I grew up in Morfettville, so down Glenelg Way. First, sort of was always into music. Had a family that was always, music was always on and around, and I reckon I was about 10 years old when my dad came in one day and put a record on and said, "You're going to like this." Yeah. And it was Led Zeppelin 2, and I did. And so I started sort of getting into, back then was heavier music, from about 10, and from there just progressed. Sort of went from Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, into started getting into sort of Australian music then, sort of some Angels, Cold Chisel, Midnight Oil were huge. I was a huge Midnight Oil fan. Yeah. And then I remember one day sitting at home watching Countdown, and the show that was on back then, and Molly Meldrum came on and started talking about this band and saying how they were disgusting and they were depraved, and this punk rock was going to be the ruin of all young people. I sat up and thought, listen to this, and it was the Sex Pistols, and that was it.
Yeah.
That was then. It was punk, and everything sort of changed.
Yeah.
And then from the Sex Pistols and English sort of punk, I got introduced to a band called the Bad Brains. We did a cover of one of their songs at our gig, our reunion, and it was the American hardcore sort of scene for me, and sort of that was the probably the biggest influence overall. Bands like the Dead Kennedys and Bad Brains, Minor Threat, Gangrene, early hardcore punk bands playing DRI, playing as fast as possible. Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
So was the Sex Pistols the first band that made you felt like you owned it, and you were now sourcing your own, your own taste and your own music, and you were just mainly before that sort of influenced by what your dad, put on the vinyls? Or?
Yeah, true. Yeah. I probably Midnight Oil.
Yeah.
Because I remember that even Midnight Oil was a departure from what he'd been listening to, and what some of the people, relatives who'd called their music, and even friends I went to school with who called their music heavy or hard, and Midnight Oil was different. It was faster. It was more aggressive. Their lyrics meant something. They weren't singing about chasing dragons, riding, acting like a Viking with a warrior sword, and whatever that was all about. But they meant something. And the music was just sort of, for me, more engaging. It was more aggressive. And the Sex Pistols, even though now I know that they could play, that sort of said that those sort of bands like that said to me, I can have a go at this. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And then during that time, were there bands in the local area that were somewhat starting to do the same thing that you
There
saw?
were. I really there were lots of bands in the late 70s and early 80s that I didn't know about because I wasn't going to see local bands. I didn't really know about them, but I know now they were there. Perdition are probably the biggest one that comes to mind for me. The huge influence, because they really grabbed that English sound and gave it an Adelaide Australian flavour and really did it well. Then it was probably the early 80s. So we started in 85. It was after the Dead Kennedys had played in Adelaide, and I was at that gig, and I remember talking to a couple of mates and said, we've got to start something here. We should do a band. And it sort of started from there. And then a lot of bands started around that era. Filthy Scumbags, Perdition were playing. Mark of Cain started around then. Fear and Loathing, and I do apologise to any bands I've forgotten, but it is a long time ago. I know someone will go, you forgot to mention my band. I'm sorry. It's not deliberate. And then I became really involved in the scene and what was happening, and just would go to as many shows as I do, like you guys know now. And there's bands playing, you try and get there. No matter where it was.
So you were like seeing these international, interstate bands come through, and then you were like, maybe we should get involved and be in the local scene? Or did you see any local bands? Like, were you involved in the local scene prior to starting a band? Or
I went to see, I was going to see, there was a magazine called Maximum Rock and Roll that came out of San Francisco, and I was actually finding out about Australian bands through that magazine, and then realised that I used to go and see a band called the Screaming Believers. They had a residency every Saturday night at the Union Hotel, and I started meeting people at that show because it was always like there was 20 or 30 of us there every week. And I discovered that they were in this band and there was this band going, and I'd go and see them, and then realised that there were bands from Melbourne who were coming over. Depression and Permanent Damage are two to come to mind. And I remember seeing Permanent Damage and just going, oh, these guys are great. For a band from Australia that was playing everything I was sort of finding out about from America. And just that was, and then there was a band, an Adelaide band called the Ribcage Wrestlers. And they were a bunch of mates who were playing fast thrashy music, and they broke up, and so I knew their guitarist from going to see Screaming Believers, and his name was Phil, and said to Phil we should get a band going. And then I knew our drummer, whose name was Phil as well. He was playing in the Acid Drops back then, and then 22nd Sec, Liz Dealey stuff. And we started talking, and Phil, the guitarist, was pretty hard to talk around. He didn't want to be in a band, probably with me, but that's okay. He ended up being in a band with me, and then we got and we had a guy trial out for bass, and it didn't work. And then Phil introduced me to staff, and
cool. How old were you at that time?
We were early 20s.
Cool.
Early 20s. So.
Because I feel like, and speaking probably also for Mark as well, like, who's behind the camera, is having the same feeling of like watching bands and having the feeling of I can do that, kind of the thing that spurs you on. And punk is such like a genre that kind of makes that connection really quickly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so and before you came, Mark was like, I remember we put on Sunday afternoon barbecue. And he's like, as soon as I heard that, he's like, I just want to do that. You know, like that feeling is, and then that's the thing that we're trying to foster is this feeling for everyone that they have the ability to give something a go.
It's community.
So it's just like everything's all linked. It's just like a nice thing to hear in words.
Yeah, it is. It's a community, and you know, even though that first Where's the Pope lineup didn't last that long, it was long enough to start playing live, and we probably had 6 or 8 of our own songs and played about 4 or 5 covers, and they were loose as hell. I mean, we were lucky to finish a song together. but we were up there. It was doing it. It was fun, and you know, Where's the Pope back then is nothing like Where's the Pope now. The Where's the Pope back then was really loose. It was, you know, there was a structure of a song in there, but it was, we'll start together, somewhere in the middle we'll probably sort of go all over the place because Phil was a very different guitarist, and then we'd try and finish together.
Yeah.
And we were lucky that we had a really good rhythm section with Rob and Phil the drummer who could hold the shit together.
Yeah.
And
That sounds kind of great though. Like, expect
it
the
was brilliant.
unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, I remember us playing a show at a place called Larkentina's on Hindley Street, which was downstairs. And one of the benefits of being called Where's the Pope, which might have been a question that came later on, no one knew what music we played. And back then, if you had a band that sounded like you were a punk, you couldn't get a gig. People would go, no way, we're not having you play. And so they'd go, Where's the Pope? You know, they didn't go it was a Christian band or anything, but they'd go, oh yeah, we'll give them a go. Because we didn't have to give them a demo or anything. We just called around and said, oh, can we have a gig? So we're playing at this show, and we're about 5 minutes in, and Phil's just decided on this night that he's just going to feed back. He's not playing any chords. He's up there, he's got his amp turned all the way up, and he's just turning around, he's got his guitar and he's just feeding back. And we're playing and we're singing, and the owner of Larkentina's just wanders up and turns him down, wanders back off, and we start another song, and he starts, and then he goes back to it and turns it all up again. We got through the whole set doing that. It was just, but that was sort of what it was like. That was, it was that whole, there was a whole thing about, you didn't have to be the best musicians in the world. You didn't have to write the best songs or have the most catchy songs, but we stuck in people's minds. People we know from back then still talk about being at that gig. I remember being at that Larkentina's gig where Phil just turned around and fed back all the time, and the owner kept arguing with you, and you just kept playing over the top while she kept turning it down. And,
that's great.
But that sort of helped us get a name, as well as playing parties. You know, the whole community thing. That was Sunday Afternoon Barbecues is about all of those lyrics are all about things that happened at parties we played at. And like the lyrics for that song I wrote when I was living in America, and I remember sitting down with my mate over there, Brian, and just said, oh, I'm actually missing home. And we'd had a couple of drinks, and it was a Sunday, and I wrote down what would be happening at home, I thought, and it took about 5 minutes. And But yeah, the whole thing about it was just that everyone could, if you really wanted to, if you could find people to join you and and get a band going, you could probably really quickly just have it going. And it was great.
And were you guys, so that was started in the 80s?
85 was our first
85.
live gig, so 40 years.
Yeah, wow. That's such a crazy, because I find even just being in a band, it feels like you're in a relationship with 4 other people all the time, and without communicating and stuff, like just non-existent. So to be able, it's a testament to like how much everyone either loved music or just being able to get through the waves of engagement between each other and stuff. But how many, in that 40 years, how many years do you think it was like consistently, you know, like playing most weekends or whatever it was, you know? Like, 'cause obviously it's dipped off like and then come back now a little bit. But like, when do you feel like Where's the Pope was kind of like, not in your prime, but you know, you were all jamming every week and playing?
We would practice every week, but we made a conscious decision to never play every week. So we would play at the most once a month and just stretch it out. And because I had a theory that if people liked us and we stretched it out a bit, they would keep liking us and then want to come back for the next gig. And that was about the stage. I know I've talked before about Screaming Believers having a residency and playing every Saturday night at the Union Hotel. That would never have worked for us. We probably would have lasted 6 months and burnt out. And so I just knew from the bands, the bands from Australia and that I'd really liked and was going to see, that I enjoyed not seeing them and looked forward to the next time I would see them. And I sort of talked to the guys, and I remember, you know, we made a decision to be like that. Not that we thought we were as good as that, but just hopefully people would then hang out to see us the next time.
Yeah.
You know, and we'd go out to watch other bands and, when are you guys playing again? And go, oh, yeah. And I'd go, okay, maybe we should look for another gig.
Yeah. And you're looking forward to seeing or playing again as well. I know that
exactly,
feeling.
Yeah.
It's nice
yeah.
to
But we also, I mean, like I said, I lived overseas. We had our Phil, the original drummer, he went and worked he was a geologist, so he worked up north. And we had breaks in there all the time, so we would never sort of be together for 86. I'm doing 4 or 5 years, and then a member would leave, and we'd stop, and they'd go and do something else or something they wanted to do different to us, and which was always good, not good but fine.
Yeah.
And it would give us like a refresher, or I'd go and live overseas for 12 months and come back and go, should we do it? Yep. So we had a break from each other. And yeah, it is like a relationship, and I've always been the first one to admit that when it comes to Where's the Pope, I can be an arsehole. But I say that, but there's always I think there's always one, maybe two members of a band that maybe do the production direction side. I can't play an instrument, so I look at it that I can stand back and maybe direct things a little bit, so that's fine.
Spiritual leader of the band.
Well, I don't know about that. I
would say that.
There'd be a few people who say the other word, but that's okay. It's like John Scott from Mark Tipple and I joke about it when he was coming to jam with us, and he sort of said, I won't say the word he used, but he came over and he said, so what's going to happen? There's 2 arseholes in this band now. But it's just it just helps keep the direction going.
Yeah.
And I like to think that I haven't really led us astray too many times.
Well, you've been going for 40 years, so it's a testament to that.
Yeah, and then we had the for 15 years before we played. That last
little break.
That was a big break, and even then
just a casual 15 years.
Yeah, well,
which is nice. I like that. I like the idea of the project never ending, but just doing it on your own. Well, not never ending, but like doing it on your own terms when it just feels right, and then. If it feels right, more often than not. Yeah.
Well, I'd put a line through it. I'd definitely put a line through it.
Yeah.
There'd been people that always, because Rob was in a band called the Meat Beaters, so he was asked quite a bit. When you're going to ever think they'll play? And,
I've seen the Meat Beaters before. Yeah.
And so it was. I just said no. I wasn't interested.
Yeah.
And I'm still not sure what happened a couple of years ago when I changed my mind and thought, this could be fun.
Yeah.
To maybe do it. And
yeah, that's cool.
Anyway.
And where did the name Where's the Pope come from? Like, how did that just pop out of thin air?
Yeah, well, that was Phil, who I was talking about as our original guitarist, being a bit different in his thinking, and we were trying to come up with a name. We were coming up with all these bog standard punk names, like whatever, and probably involved hate or something, and la la la, being trying to be as punk as possible, and we sort of, I knew that, we all knew that if we had a really bad punk name that was actually pretty full on, we'd never get a gig, because Adelaide was pretty conservative and no one liked punk music. You had people like Molly Meldrum on TV telling the whole Australia that if you're a punk, you're a lowlife, and things like that. And he said, "Where's the Pope?" And I went, I remember going, what? That's shit. Yeah. And all the other guys went, no. And then we went, that's the only thing we agree on, is that we don't like it. Yeah. So let's go with it. So, and that's how we actually got called Where's the Pope, was Phil came up with it.
Was it just a random phrase that he said?
Where's the Pope? And I think the Pope had visited Adelaide in the Pope-mobile just before.
Okay.
And so in his mind it was probably really relevant.
Yeah.
And but it just came up, and we sort of thought, well, no one will know what music we play as well. Yeah. And it sticks in people's heads. I've seen people talking about it over the years as ridiculous band names, and if it does that, that's fine.
Yeah, definitely stuck in my head.
Then we just trimmed it down to WTP a bit, so it was easier to fit everywhere. And
I actually build this weird connection with Where's the Pope and Parkway Drive, hearing these stories? Because you said before that you guys just look like normal guys, but you didn't look punky and like didn't look like you were a part of the scene, so it was more approachable for people to listen. And then even the name, you didn't want to sound like super punky or anything, and Parkway Drive were like, we didn't want to have death or like Christ or anything in their name. And it's like a same sort of thing. You made punk approachable for just everyday people, and they made metal or whatever, approachable for everyday people.
It'd be nice to be as big as Parkway Drive.
Sitting in Byron Bay with a cocktail.
With Jackson Holst.
Where's that boy with my latte? But it was just it didn't really give away anything. Once people saw us, they knew what was happening. Just bunch of regular guys who'd go and see music and have a beer or 200 in an afternoon and be loose and hang out with everyone.
Cool. That's cool. I think it's also nice, like, just being open to, you didn't like the name at first, but sometimes things you don't like initially are the things you like down the track the most,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that probably is like, you can feel it in your music with the things that you sing about. Maybe you don't like to hear the situation that's going on at the moment, but over time you're more open to it, so it's reflective of the songs that you write.
To a point. I agree with that. I think the band name grew on me, but even now people, I meet people and they go, I used to go out to see bands back in the day, and so what was your, because I don't go up and go, I used to be in a band. Someone around me will go, Frank used to play in a band, and go, okay, and you go, what band? And go, Where's the I've heard that name. You go, so that's because it's just a name that sticks, because it is different. And so just people listen to it and go, I sort of remember that. Might not have ever seen us, but they might have heard the name.
Do you think in that period where you were kind of playing, once a month or jamming consistently, there was a period in time where you thought like, this is a bit more than just a fun thing to do. Like, I'm really liking this as a form of expression, or like the band's getting somewhat traction in the local scene or beyond. Like, do you reckon there was like a gig or some sort of offer or some song that got a bit of traction that you thought, fuck, like this is a bit bigger than I intended it to be?
Yeah, I think when the first album Straight Edge Holocaust came out, things changed a lot, because that went really well, and we started to get known outside of Adelaide a little bit. And we started to play to bigger crowds. We were really lucky that people seemed to like us, and for whatever reason they started turning up in bigger numbers, and we knew then, I think, that we had to start taking things a bit more seriously. And I think we started to, even though when the next album, Sunday Barbecues, came out, we were still writing songs and not really understanding how to do it, but we were getting better at it. And then we started, we also talked about as a band about being more serious on stage as well, not being so drunk when we played, little things like that. If people were paying good money, you can't get up there and just fuck up all the time. Sometimes it's funny, but if you're doing it all the time, eventually people just go, what am I doing? Why would I bother?
It's almost like trying to find the balance of like not doing that so much, but keeping that raw live set, which people want to see, and like kind of being a bit unpredictable, but
still keeping it a bit loose, but not to the point of songs just going into a dirge of music and sound that doesn't actually make sense. And because people would buy the albums, or as one guy came up to me one time and sort of, I got a tape of I taped your album the other day. Here it is on cassette. And I'm like, thanks, mate. That's all good. But people knew the lyrics and they knew the songs, so you sort of you had to find that ground where you could still be a bit loose, still really be that band on stage, but still take it reasonably seriously. And for me personally, there's no way this Frank that's talking to you can go on stage. So I have to sort of not be me, because I couldn't do it. Which is, just a character, I guess.
That's cool. That's really
cool. But in so that was around the late 80s, and then I think in the mid 90s things took off again as well for us.
Yeah. In terms of, like you say, like the song got traction or an album got traction, like to give us maybe people our age and younger some more context of that time, like how does that happen? You know, we're looking at things like Spotify and algorithms punching songs in, but like in that time, how would a song get around to people in the local community or even interstate? Like you said, you were reading a certain magazine. Was there anything else that was floating around locally that helped bands like Where's the Pope get to that next level? Yeah,
there was always a big fanzine in Adelaide called DNA. So Harry Butler it's still going, and I think Harry started that in the late 70s. So that's still going, and so he was a big one for promoting Adelaide music. There were, I mean, the labels we were on would put it out there, but the one that got us traction most of all was the most traction was that Sunday Barbies, because the sales for that went out through Greasy Pop, and Greasy Pop had connections all over Australia, and that one got to number 12 on the national chart, the actual independent national chart. And so that was back then there were magazines, Rip It Up was there was national ones, I'm trying to think of some of them, but so people would see that in there and then they'd investigate, and Triple J played us as well. So back when Triple J used to, in my eyes, be a bit more alternative, they got onto Where's the Pope and put us on rotation for about a month, which really helped.
That would have been massive back then, sure.
Well, not as big as now, probably.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, you know, that was back in the day when Triple J, to protest, you know, did a thing like play "Fuck the Police" for 24 hours. That was the only song they played. Do you remember that?
That sounds great.
I've heard about that.
Yeah, they as a protest, they just put "Fuck the Police" on by NWA for 24
hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was that in regards to? Like,
that would have been something with the ABC and the probably the government would have been a Liberal government at the time, but I can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, just put it on and just away they went.
I heard about that. Yeah.
I guess from our journey,
Yep.
like just even working down at Portlunger Aquatics and talking to people, even just when starting music, about the 90s and the scene that was around, especially down this way, and our kind of philosophy trying to bring, like, foster a new scene in a different way. But it does feel like all of the means of interacting with the music and the art was just like such a beautiful, like, physical thing, you know, like looking at a magazine, seeing it, like you remember finding this magazine and then that linking into an album that then links you to another time. And it's so easy, I feel, at the moment, to feel so disconnected from just everything in general, because we're just information overload.
Absolutely.
But like during that time when everyone was interacting with music in that way, how do you think, like, what did the shows look like? Like, obviously you didn't have phones.
No. They were big. Adelaide had a huge scene. Adelaide's always had, for punk, had a really good, strong scene. Bands from interstate would be the ones that everyone heard about, and they would come and tour Adelaide and just be amazed. You know, like, punk bands would come to Adelaide and play gigs with Where's the Pope, and there'd be minimum, whether it was in the 90s at the Holdfast or in the 80s into 90s at Adelaide Uni, Flinders Uni, the Century Hotel, 500 people. And it was massive. And there weren't any fights. People were there, there was, you know, everyone was getting drunk and whatever, just getting loose, but they just couldn't believe it. And they just could not understand why people didn't know about the Adelaide scene and how strong it was. You know, and it was, but we used to write letters back then. We had handwritten letters, so you were engaging really with people. You know, so if you wanted to know something, there was a phone number, you know, for the record label. You know, or you had to go into a store and physically grab the record. You know, you'd go around, people, well, I used to, not just other people, but I used to hear about a record that was out and would go to the regular stores that I would go to in the city, and if they didn't have it, start hunting it. And Marion Shopping Centre would have 2 or 3 sort of record stores that could get independent records in, and you'd go to them and say, can you get this? And they'd look it up and either go yes or no.
It's funny, like even that alone, Marion Shopping Centre having 2 or 3 record shops.
Oh, yeah.
Like they'd have 0 now probably.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
just that alone.
And they were always busy.
Yeah.
They were flat out. People, yeah.
Crazy.
It's
Yeah.
incredible. Yeah, it's so different.
Yeah.
it's just different. I don't know if it's better or worse, but it's definitely just so different.
I think it's worse for the bands.
Yeah, I do. As well.
Because, I mean, you look at the sort
Deep
of money
down.
that Spotify and, you know, Apple and Amazon and all those companies pay bands compared to, even though, you know, the money that you would make off of one album sale back then was a pittance. It was a lot more than you make off of a download on Spotify.
Yeah.
A lot more.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we used to look at it when you'd release a CD or an album, and we would hope that maybe $1 or $2 would come back our way from one album sale. That's never going to happen now. You know, I saw something posted on I think Facebook the other day about they had a list of all of the streaming services and how much they pay bands and per download, and you're looking at like, you know, 0.0002 cents a download, and you go, what?
It's crazy. And most years they then also, you know, that still just keeps going down.
Oh,
but
yeah.
But their profit keeps going up. Yeah, it's bizarre.
Well, and
It's so weird. There has to be a new way of this.
Yeah, but I
feels
think-
like we're coming to a head, surely.
you'd hope so, but then that was, if you believe the Spotify documentary thing, the guy who started Spotify, that was his goal as well, was to give money back to the bands, because the labels were just ripping bands off left, right and centre, these big labels, you know, owning everything. And eventually he got sucked into the system, and there it is.
Now he's part of it.
He's part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There has to be like a happy middle ground, surely, like between
Yeah.
this thing, but don't know how we'll get there. And we're
Well,
definitely not there yet.
It's a happy middle ground if your music's getting downloaded 15 billion times.
Okay.
There's a very happy middle ground there.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you're and that's what I meant by, you know, someone taping our album, but we were only printing 1,000. And we, you know, for whatever reason, I'm not going to blame people, but we didn't see a cent from all of them. So that's why, you know, when I got a tape of your album, cheers.
Yeah.
But, you know, tape away, I don't care.
Yeah.
That's fine. Never in it for the money. But it would have been nice to maybe make the money back that we put in, but, you know, but I don't see how, I don't know how they can change the system that's there, that's always going to be weighted to the business model. I don't see it. I mean, I know, you know, independent labels can do their best, but if you've got a band and they get big, what do you think will happen?
Yeah.
Someone comes knocking,
Yeah.
and then and I mean, I've seen it happen with independent bands in America. You look at Green Day, Offspring, some of those sort of bands that were on smaller labels, and the big labels come knocking, and you almost have to just, yes sir,
Succumb.
thank you sir, and
Yeah.
here you go, and thanks for the check,
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Do you think relative to our time now, as a medium maybe sized band, do you think that you are actually making all right money off of your music comparatively to say like maybe Ethanol Blend or these other medium sized bands in this time?
I don't know,
Yeah.
because I'm not sure how the money gets distributed.
Yeah.
The only thing we actually made money on was a CD we released ourselves, and we did everything. And the drummer Tox, who lives over at York's, and we wish he was still around, but he decided to do everything. He went to the stores, took the CDs, he kept all the money, he kept all the notes, everything, and we made some money off that. And we're not talking a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at taking 2 years to really get all the music and everything together for an album, to record it over 2 weeks, to mix it, all that, and to print stuff,
Yeah.
all that sort of thing. We were always very lucky that we probably got paid better than other bands for gigs, and again, never ever thought that we were better than other bands, but for whatever reason, people came to our gigs, and so if people come to your gigs, you can make a bit of money off the gigs. But again, it wasn't enough for us to quit a job. Everyone had full-time jobs, and it was never, you know, sort of like, woohoo, here we go. There was never any of that. But our recordings, I mean, we'll see how all the re-releases go. I know they, you know, with Footy on board at Clarity, that we're in good hands, and hopefully he can make his money back first. You know, because that's the main goal, is he put a lot of money up to do this, and so we want him to make his money back as well. So we want to support him.
He's a great guy.
Oh, he is, absolutely. Yeah.
Represent. Maybe just to, I guess, digress a little bit. We're talking about the up and coming of Where's the Pope and stuff. Maybe chat about, you guys played the first Adelaide Big Day Out.
We did.
Is that right?
We did.
How was that? Like, I know getting that call up or whatever, and maybe the importance for that show for the band, or maybe the local scene, or just Adelaide bands, was that a bit of a like, holy shit, that's massive? Like, how was that at the time?
That was great. The first Big Day Out, lots of people still, and it's easy for us to go, oh, you know, the good old days, that was the best one. But it was the best one. I mean, it was at Adelaide Uni. It had grass everywhere. It was about 49,000 degrees. Did you go to that one? No. The fireys brought a fire truck in and were hosing people down. But there were grassed areas. You could sit in the shade. Yeah, Wavell was great, but minimal shade, concrete, that sort of thing. And a lot more people, which it was always going to happen because it was the first one was really popular. But the people running it, Pete Curnow and Di. Pete had always been a friend of mine. He ran record stores in Adelaide in the city, and always been a fan of Where's the Pope. He always liked us, and he called me one day, I remember, and sort of said, oh, you know, what's the band doing? We're in a break at that stage, and I said, oh, we're thinking about rehearsal. I still remember, and said, oh, what do you think? I've got this show coming up, and I'd heard rumours, and I said, you mean the Big Day Out? And he went, yeah, but you're not allowed to tell anyone because you're not playing, so it's probably going to cause a bit of a stink. So that hurried us along to actually do a couple of gigs and get back in there, and that was huge. I mean, that photo is on the back of our CD that's just been re-released, the self-titled one, the photo, and it's in the cloisters, and it was just jam-packed from the front of the stage to the very back. I don't know if you know the cloisters at Adelaide Uni. It's
I love that venue. So good.
So
would that be on
all the way back?
The Spotify re-release? Is that the album artwork?
It is.
Should we have a look?
Yep. So that's on the back cover, and we still get. That's the album there. Yep. So you just want the back cover. That's the only thing.
You wouldn't be able to get
we wouldn't be able to get the back cover. And this is where Spotify lacks. Also, it's like, why wouldn't you have the front and the back cover?
Yep.
On. Like, you go to the time to fucking make a record. You want the front and you want the back.
And that's the other thing about being so happy also to do vinyl, is that you get all that information in your hands. Lyric sheets, you get photos, you get a back cover, you get information, you learn about the band that way. So yeah, he called us. We put together a set, played. And it was great. That really got us rolling again into the 90s. And that was when we changed musically as well. So we went from, the style on there was sort of punky and sort of, Roland's band, sort of rocky, sort of funk, a bit of funk stuff, which now I look back and go, it was a phase. But but there were still some songs off that we still play. So a song like Self-Doubt, is really fast and really flat out. Sunday Barbies was on that one as well. We released that on a couple of albums because it was one of our favourites.
That's good.
We tended to do that. We Want Your Beer and Sunday Barbies. We thought, because the album sold out, we used to say, people really love those two songs, so why don't we put them on this album as well? So that people go, because people go, I can't get Sunday Barbies because it was on that album and it's sold out. I can't get it, so we'd put it on the next one.
But people can't go back onto Spotify and listen to it now.
Well,
it's like,
and now it's there. It's on them all. But and then so we did that. We did that gig, which was brilliant for us. Introduced us to, reintroduced us to people from the late 80s, early 90s, or late 80s. who came back, and then some people who'd been to the couple of gigs we played, which had luckily been nice sized gigs with lots of people, and so then they all came to watch us, and then from there we got a whole new crowd as well. It's like we would take breaks and it'd almost be like a new generation of people coming through that seemed to catch on to us, and
that's cool.
really lucky.
Yeah.
Really lucky.
I remember, just being at, maybe just in the early stages of doing daybed stuff, or even before that. And my friend Johnny Cook, his uncle played in the Hot Tomatoes, and when I first started playing music, the Hot Tomatoes were like, there's this one video of them playing at Porty's Pub, and everyone used to go, oh, you got to get Where's the Pope to play. And I was just like, who the fuck is Where's the Pope? Like, and it just used to come out of everywhere. And then I'm just like, and then I had no idea about the following or anything. And then I saw the first Gov show, and it was like sold out in a week. And I was like, what is going on here? This must have been, like, to still have so many people that feel a certain way about the music, there must be something really special there. So, which is, I just thought was really interesting and also really cool.
Yeah, it is. It's I mean, it's really humbling. I've always said that. It's we never ever believed that we were writing any songs better than anyone else. I think a little bit of originally a little bit of what helped people connect with Where's the Pope back in the early days was that none of us looked like punks. We looked like guys you'd have a drink with in the pub, and we were. And even though we called ourselves punks, you know, I had a mohawk for a week, sort of thing, and none of us had the supposed, you know, punk look that turned society off. You know, even though it was the people we loved being with. And so I think it helped different people sort of join in, and we had a lot of fun when we played. And yeah, when we would write songs, we would concentrate on just writing something that we thought was catchy, and it might not be the most dynamically structured song. It might not have the most incredible lead break. It might not have the perfect verse chorus breakdown, or, you know, bridge or whatever. We just did what we thought sounded okay, and we got very, very lucky that people enjoyed it as well.
That's cool.
Yeah, and stuck with us. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a bit of nostalgia happening at the moment, as you've probably seen with ticket sales to Day at the Club.
Yeah.
God, how do you feel
And I think when people had been on the Facebook page that I set up a long time ago, sort of, you know, when are you going to play, and you know, as people do.
Yeah.
And that was great. That was really nice. And then, yeah, I think we probably used a couple of marketing strategies sneakily to make it sound like it was, you know, you don't miss out sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And but even without sort of, I mean, and trust me, when we put up there that it was selling out, it was actually selling out, but that wasn't one of the ploys.
Yeah.
But to just to bring back things into people's memories. So, you know, like on the Facebook page, there was a time I would just let it go, and then out of the blue I'd come back and just almost every couple of days just post a song, not ours, but just another song, just to keep people maybe seeing it come up in their feed, and just little things. And yeah, we were very lucky that people liked us. And the time we did our first reunion show back in 23, I think there was a big nostalgia thing happening with punk bands. I mean, a lot of the people from 35 to 60 years old didn't know bands, weren't going to see, but COVID had sort of cut that. And so they think they become maybe disjointed from the new bands, and still wanted to see bands they loved, but none of them were playing. And so the couple of them people started coming over from Melbourne and getting a crowd, and yeah, we sort of were lucky enough to, I think, be involved in that too.
Yeah.
So
personally really like the bands like Where's the Pope and stuff starting to play again, because from a young person's perspective, yes, there's people where you're always having nostalgia and stuff, but
Yeah.
when you're in a band and you're getting older, you have in your head like, oh, maybe, you know, I've got full-time work or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe this band thing is just something that I should do when I'm young and just let it go or whatever. But
Yeah.
you see guys like yourself still just having the best time and people resonating with the music, and you're like, no, fuck it. Like, I'm going to keep playing because this is actually what I like doing and it's
Yeah.
fun. So it's nice to see young bands, which are inspiring because they're just getting into it and they're just learning. But it's also really inspiring seeing you guys play and going, I want to do that when
Thanks.
I'm that age, and I want to just keep going because it's sick and who cares?
Yep.
So,
No, thanks.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
I think, there's the nostalgia, but we also, I remember when we started rehearsing and I was talking to Rob about it, because Rob and I have been the constant all the way through. And I sort of said to him, we can't just go through the motions. We're not going to get up and play. If we're going to do it, we have to be able to try and be as close to an old Where's the Pope show as we possibly can. So, we have to give it everything.
Yeah.
And we weren't going to do it half-hearted. No, I can't run out on the stage before a song starts and somersault into the crowd anymore. that day's gone.
And it's funny because those things are just going
No.
nuts at the moment.
Oh.
The videos of hardcore bands and stuff,
Yeah.
and like just that scene, and that's probably
Well,
more hardcore what you
yeah.
guys were probably channeling back
Yeah,
then.
yeah,
that's-
I know, and they actually set the platform up at the front of the stage, in front of the monitors,
Yeah.
for people to dive off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a diving stage.
It's like facilitated
Hint,
for now.
hint.
You'll be doing it Feb 22nd.
Yeah,
we all know it.
We,
Yeah.
we
Straight
need,
out,
We need one.
front front.
We need one
Big
because
front flip.
yeah, we need one.
Yeah, we'll put it in the
Yeah.
infrastructure budget for you.
If this comes out before Day at the Club, get onto them. You want a platform. Yeah, I mean, and we've always invited people up. We would always play shows, and I would always talk to security, because we know security can get overzealous, especially if there's stage diving and there's people coming up and they know they're not meant to touch the singer, or you're not meant to go near the guitarist.
Yeah.
So I would always talk to everywhere we played, talk to security and just say, right, no one in front, just stand at the sides. If someone comes up, I'm a big enough boy that I can push them off, or I can probably control the stage to a point, and if they bump into me, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And because we wanted involvement. We just wanted people to be involved. And even the last one at the Gov, I mean, people were up there jumping off.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty funny to
It was
watch,
awesome.
watch all the 50-year-old guys
It was
jumping
awesome.
off, trying,
Really?
It
not
was
getting as much
honestly-
air, but it was great. Yeah.
It was so great. It was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and it would be fantastic to get that going
Get some
again
of that.
at Day at the Club. That'd be
yeah.
See
brilliant.
what we can do.
Yeah, because I've always liked being in the crowd as well. When you're younger and you can cop a bit of a beating, but the last couple of shows at the Gov, it's a bit harder because she's getting up there and getting back, and we saw that young fella land on his head
Yeah.
at that last one. Yeah, he's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
But having said all that, and I've gone around in circles again. It's just we've always tried to, as much as we definitely didn't think we write better songs than anyone. There's bands out there writing great songs that weren't pulling a lot of people, and at all I stand there and go, these guys are fucking great.
Yeah.
Where is everyone?
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And I don't know, maybe it was because we did involve the crowd or whatever, but
Yeah.
very lucky. And
That's cool.
Yeah.
And like moving forward to February 22nd
Yep.
and the big dance.
yeah.
Is there anything you want to let people know that they can, expect the unexpected for Where's the Pope? I mean, I'm expecting the unexpected because I've never seen you guys play, and
Yeah.
I'm just really looking forward to that
Yep.
time of day. It's going to be beautiful light.
Yep.
It's going to be, for me anyway, hopefully a moment of decompression of just like, all right, we're nearly at the end of the day here.
Yep.
Hopefully no one's hurt.
Yeah.
Are you gonna? Will there be songs from each chapter, or have you guys started thinking about a set list?
We had our first rehearsal last week. I put it on Instagram and Facebook that we were back in. So I took a set. I'd written a set. We had to cut 6 songs off of it once we started timing it. Because, I mean, the ones at the Gov, we were playing for about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And they were 28 to 30 songs.
That's wild.
And
That's a long
so
jet.
for this one, there might be a surprise. Guest appearance at the start of the gig.
Ooh.
Yeah, maybe those who know will know what I'm talking about. Might be a repeat from 2023. Now they'll really know.
It's for the OGs.
Yeah, and but we can't wait. Can't wait.
Yeah,
Yeah,
likewise.
but just have your crowd surfing gear on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want people on there.
Want people moving.
We want people moving. We want you to jump up. We want you to be a part of the show.
Yeah.
Remember, but if you're going to come up, don't bring your camera up to film yourself doing it, because then you will get just pushed off.
Yeah.
Just come up,
Frames
enjoy
go,
yourself, and get back into the crowd, and
Yeah.
then come back and do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And get off in a reasonable time. There was a guy lurking, I reckon,
Exactly.
at the
Yeah. 3 second rule.
Know the
It's
etiquette, you know.
Yeah, it's a 3 second rule.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had a couple of guys jump up at these gigs, and they've got the camera doing this sort of thing, and I stand there and shake my head, and then
Yeah.
off you go. See you later.
Yeah.
And just look out for everyone. Yeah, like people always have at our gigs. Just look out for everyone. If someone goes down, pick them up, make sure they're okay. And the pit's for everyone. It's not just a sausage fest.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
the pit's for everyone. That's
Yeah.
why we do a cover of a 7-second song called Not Just Boys Fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On that topic of like even just covering that song and that
Yep.
topic, like your lyrical content as well, like you speak about, racial issues and even like your feelings and stuff like that, and
Yep.
actually expressing maybe some darker feelings that you have, like especially in the 90s, it was probably a time where those topics weren't spoken about.
Yep.
Or like accepted as much as they are now. Is that something you always tried to hone in on, or was that something you just didn't even care about? Was that something like, I want to change how bands maybe write in this scene, or
Flow through.
Yeah, no, I think there was always political punk bands,
Yeah.
and that was one of the things of early punk bands, was that they were writing political songs and they were challenging people to think about things.
Yeah.
And as I said before, like growing up, having Midnight Oil changed my life. Completely political band, and I guess I grew up in a left-wing household, so that was always there. And with Where's the Pope, I always lyrically I always wanted to have a mix. So I always wanted to write songs that made people think. If they didn't agree with what I was writing, so be it. But maybe you would think about it. And so I mean, I think back in the 80s, early 90s, there wasn't a lot of mainstream music writing, talking about racial issues or mental health issues, or just, blokes maybe not going as well about things. And I say men because, boys, guys in the band, and it was just, that's what we were talking about, because I can't really write from someone else's perspective. But then we also like to go out and get smashed with our friends.
Yeah.
But it didn't stop us caring about all this other stuff. And, if you were at the last gig at the Gov, when I went on a little bit of a rant about a guy who sent a note on Facebook, when I sort of said, we supported the yes vote. And he said, you should just stick to music, give the politics away. And I thought, mate, have you ever been to a Where's the Pope show? Have you ever heard any of our songs? Because 85 to 90% of them are actually politically oriented or driven, or are songs about people being able to express themselves without fear of being put down. Obviously you hadn't.
Yeah. And it's
But
just
that's
nice.
okay.
It's really nice to have that contrast of, like Sunday afternoon barbecues and then speaking about this stuff. It's really cool to have that contrast.
I think as I've gotten older too, and doing the job I do, which is a really conservative job, I've probably come closer to the centre, where I sort of understand. I can say personally, I think that I'm a really good devil's advocate. I try and see both sides. But if all you can see is over here, or all you can see is over there, left or right, you sort of lose track of what's really happening. You become too narrow in your vision. And I think as much as I write stuff about racial issues, as much as I write stuff about religious issues, I know there'll be some people who don't agree with me. I'm happy to listen to their argument, Doesn't mean I'm going to sit down and have a beer with you, but you know, that's the whole point of it is, and it's not just free speech, because to me, free speech stops when your speech hurts people. But yeah, you can have your opinion, but yeah, they're things that I care about.
Yeah,
that
that's
I care
cool.
about, you know.
And then to have someone that has maybe opposite views, you know, be singing along to that song,
Well,
and then also not knowing the meaning of it,
Yeah.
and then maybe that washes over them in a certain
Yeah.
way, and it maybe could challenge their way of thinking a little
Yep.
bit, or enhance it, open the perspective, as you said.
Yeah,
But,
there's a song we do called Mighty White, which some people have taken back when it was first started that it was about being mighty and white. But it's not. It's about being a racist idiot, and it's going, that's mighty whitey, you buddy, sort of thing, you know. But
and I think good art always leaves room for interpretation, you know.
Absolutely,
like,
yeah.
So you've got the spectrum of what you've actually wrote it about.
Yeah.
It allows, you know, another train of thought, whatever, so be it, even if it is not so positive. But at the end of the day, it leaves room for people to have their own connection to it in whatever way. But
absolutely, yeah.
in terms of, I don't know, you don't have to talk about it in too much in detail, but like your job, for example, working with children, when you get up on the stage or whatever, I mean, you haven't done it that much as you've had this job, but do you feel like it's a good way to inspire the youth being up there? Because for me, it's funny, I have friends that are teachers, and some of them don't want to do it because they're afraid of, you know, being seen as a teacher. And then I have other friends that just get up there and go willy-nilly. But my personal opinion is, this is awesome. Like, imagine getting up there and seeing your teacher at a gig, and just, you know, I'd be like, wow, I could do that. You know, this guy teaches me maths. You know?
Yeah, it's a funny one. I mean, that was one of the reasons why Where's the Pope didn't play, because I was having trouble reconciling both worlds.
Yeah.
Because if you're teaching, as the years have gone on, there's a lot more a much higher expectation that you'll behave a certain way. But there were lots of people at the school I teach at whose parents have seen Where's the Pope. Kids whose parents come in and go, oh, I remember coming to see you back in the day, and that's brilliant, that's fantastic, and they'll talk to you about songs. And, you know, so I guess the years that I teach, probably those kids, probably not so much because they're a bit young. But some of the kids I've taught and go into high school, if they can see it as a bit of an inspiration, or they can see me with the band talking about issues that they're deeply involved with, and they can say, you know what, he talked about that when he was teaching me as well. Cool, that'd be great.
Yeah, that's cool. That's so cool. Yeah, I think that's really important.
Yeah,
just having role models or people that, instead of it just being this thing that's all they do, is like another world that kids can look up to and go, oh wow, that's someone who I wouldn't think is doing that. And so
well, teaching,
I find that really cool.
I find teaching a bit like being on stage. So teaching it's not going to be me with my mates at home. Teaching is the Frank, Mr. P, they call me, that I need to be at school to do what I have to do, because you need to keep something to yourself. And so when I'm on stage as well, people who see me out, or that come and talk to me, most of them would call me Frankie P or Frank P. And that's a bit of a character. It's a bit of a split off from the me I am at home, because the me I am at home is, I think, pretty quiet, and, you know, likes to sit down and just take it easy, and you know, play with the grandkids and the dog, and, you know, my partner, and just hang out and with the mates, and rather than cutting loose and getting blind and you know, jumping off stages.
Cool. Well, should we wrap up with the 2 questions?
Ooh. We normally finish every episode with a couple of questions.
Sure.
The first is, who did you see before they were big? So like, you might have seen a band that eventually blew up and got massive, and you saw them at, Flinders Uni with 3 people there.
Yep.
And then the second question is, what band or song would you recommend people listen to now? We might split that up into like a band that you grew up listening to, and maybe a band or a local band that you really like now.
Sure. So probably the band that blew up the biggest that I saw with not very many people was Midnight Oil. So I saw Midnight Oil play with at the Arkabar Hotel, and there was 50 people. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's crazy,
So I was still in high school then.
Even that as a venue, the Arkabar.
Oh yeah, and it's a great venue.
Yeah.
Hey,
It
it's
used to
great.
go off, I think.
Yeah.
Now,
And
not so much.
I still remember Rob Hurst, the drummer, hanging upside down. They had an open roof just with wood, whatever that's called, lattice sort of thing.
Yeah.
He was hanging upside down by his legs and playing the drums upside down. It's just
Whoa,
amazing.
cool.
Yeah,
That's sick.
yeah. And I remember going in there. A friend of mine had said, "Oh, look, come with me. We're going to see this band Midnight Oil." And I'd sort of heard a couple of songs, and they started, and I was just it was one of those moments. They were just wild.
Yeah.
And Peter Garrett, young Peter Garrett was as good a frontman as you'd ever see,
That's wild.
ever. Now the other questions. A current band. See, a lot of if the guys from Mindsnare ever see this, they'll laugh. They put me onto a band called Gridiron out of America. So they're a real hardcore band, but hardcore rap. And you first listen to them and you go, "Oh, these guys are a bit of a joke. This is pretty funny."
Yeah.
And then you listen to them a bit more and you go, "Oh yeah," and then you go, "I get it."
Finally clicks.
and like within about like half hour of listening to their stuff, they've got a song where they're just their chorus is "You're on the bench, we're in the trench," and I'm texting this back to the bass player Nigel of Mindsnare, and he's going, "You got it, you got it." Yeah, so I like them. They're pretty cool. There's a lot of bands. There's a lot of bands like Trapped Under Ice. I really like. I still like Hatebreed. Still love them.
This is so funny because, like my housemate Dale, he's a hardcore nut, and like whenever we're out and he'll find someone else that is into hardcore, it's just like all of these names. Like you did class Hatebreed and
Trapped Under Ice.
Like I don't know. It's just like so many. Names that
and Day of Contempt, Adelaide band, they got back together to play. They're great. They were sort of like, I know I've gone off topic again, but seeing Day of Contempt play in the late 90s, early 2000 was a trigger for me to sort of go, it's time for us to stop and sort of go, it's all yours. Yeah, that was the new breed, all that stuff.
Yeah, cool.
And the other question,
It was like the split, a band from back when you were growing up or playing with at that time that you would recommend people listen to.
Well, the best Adelaide punk band of all time is Price of Silence.
Price of Silence?
Yeah, Price of Silence. So our guitarist at the moment, Jeff, played guitar for him.
Okay.
And they were just unbelievably good as a punk band in the mid-90s through to the early 2000s. Yeah, so I think there's a release on Spotify.
Cool.
Yep, they were great. And I mean, then there's, Bearded Clams, Numbskulls, all those bands.
Yeah.
They're all around. They're still playing and they were great.
Yeah.
Always good fun.
Yeah.
And Tumbleweed, if people haven't seen Tumbleweed, you're in for a treat.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
Sweet.
in for a treat.
Yeah.
Good. They might not agree with me calling this, but it's good stoner metal. Yeah.
Stoner metal.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah,
combo.
they're good value, really good value.
Cool.
And don't get old. What's the other question?
No, that was it.
That was it.
That was
Yeah.
it. Done it.
I guess.
Pleasure.
On behalf of Tom and I, thank you,
Pleasure.
and also
Thanks for having
thank
me.
you to Mark,
Yep.
who is a godsend.
Cheers, Mark.
Looking forward to the 22nd.
Oh, can't wait.
And
Can't wait.
yeah,
Yeah.
just
I guess
can't
the
wait
other
for
thing
it
I
to
can say.
start. Really,
Yeah.
it's just this weird limbo land at the moment where it's just like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
this will definitely be the last time we play down south.
Cool.
Ever. So that's absolutely will be the last time we play down south. Yeah.
Huge.
There you
Wow.
go.
Yeah, and it's sort of going to be a little bit of a best of Where's the Pope.
Hell yeah. I'm so excited. It was
Yeah.
great to get a taste at the Gov. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thanks for having
coming
me.
through.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
cheers, boys. Yeah, good luck with everything too.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks.